Thank you very much. Sarah has the microphone, and they said that I can take a few questions.
So, Mr. Cain, how do we get rid of 535 more or less barriers?
535 what?
More or less barriers.
One at a time. One at a time. Here's where you're absolutely right. We got 535 barriers in Washington, D.C., and here's what a lot of people fail to recognize. I know you recognize it. 435 people can't lead anything. That's not their job. 100 senators, they're not leaders as a group. When have you ever succeeded having 100 people trying to all lead at the same time? Not if you don't have the right marching orders. Too many Americans vote for whatever name they recognize. First of all, you got approximately 50% of the voters vote. That's not good. 50% of the ones that vote don't know who the hell they're voting for. So they vote for whoever they remember from a commercial or who kissed the most amount of babies and this sort of thing. But the way we eliminate those barriers is one at a time, is what we have to do.
Come on, I know y'all have questions.
I scared the crap out of everybody. That's what happened.
I'm an attorney, and I get very disheartened by the fact that the lawmakers can do. The lawmakers can do so many things, but it seems like one of the greatest attacks on things that we're talking about happens in the court system. And so I don't know if you've got any good ideas about motivating. In the state of Georgia, our judiciary is elected. How to motivate these ideas to be carried forward to the polls in the voting of the election of the judiciary. Because what you said earlier, people vote for the person whose name they recognize. And we have a recurring problem in our state where we continue to reelect people to our highest judiciary that shouldn't be there.
You've
got any motivating pointers for that?
We have the same problem relative to federal judges. It's the same problem. This is where it gets back to let's try and elect as good of people as we can. I know that we elect the judiciary here in Georgia, but it gets back to voter education. One of the things that I think that the party leadership should be doing more of in every state is more voter education. When you have a third of the people who don't know who controls the House of Representatives or who controls the United States Senate at the federal level, you better believe you got just as many people who don't even understand how our structure works here in the state of Georgia. We need to better educate them, and so this is why I was glad to hear Melanie mention some of the things that you all are involved in, and that's education. And that is critical. That is critical. So I don't have any magic answers about how we fix it. It starts with let's recognize that it's a problem, and you certainly recognize that that is part of the problem. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the problem with incrementalism in D.C. versus solution-based approaches. We need solutions. So how do we overcome that issue in D.C. of the incrementalism to allow solutions to actually win out?
First thing you do is you have the right leaders leading the House, the right leaders leading the Senate, and then you've got to get the right leader in the White House. Because there's only one branch of government that can make quantum change the right kind. And that's the way the founders set it up, has to come from the President of the United States of America. So a president can lead aggressively with the wrong policies, or they can lead aggressively with the right policies. Most of us would say that if they're leading aggressively and the people feel as if they're doing the right things, we're okay with that. But if you have someone leading and the policies aren't working and you're not trusting the leaders, we got to make a change there. Those 535 barriers that he referred to, they're not going to do it without somebody giving up some political capital. Let me give you an example. When President George W. Bush was president, he tried to do the right thing by trying to pass personal retirement accounts in order to restructure our Social Security system. I applauded that. He expended a lot of political capital pushing that idea. But he was up against Democrats scaring the crap out of people, saying that he was trying to destroy Social Security. Some people believed it. And the other reason that it didn't get across the finish line, members of his own party sat on the bench and didn't help him on that issue. Now, part of it is him going to them and closing the door and say, fellas and ladies, let's have a little heart-to-heart talk. Get with the program here. Get with the program. They needed to be out there saying the same thing, but too many of them just kind of sat back and watched him out there on that limb. But he was trying, so you got to have that kind of leader in the White House in order for us to get out of this incrementalism.
How do we get rid of the cronyism that we have in our government, the donations and the rungs and the handouts to all the corporations, get it back to a free enterprise system? How do we elect a leader that will not, fall down to this, that stands out separately from?
How do we eliminate the cronyism? And two things. First, the tax code, replace it. Then 50% of the lobbyists will be looking for other jobs. Don't worry, I'll hook them up with a pizza franchise. Don't feel sorry for them. So the first thing is the tax code. That is the basis of a lot of that. Secondly, we need to reform the McCain-Feingold campaign finance laws. If you want to find out how that is an incumbent protection plan, run for office. Right, Barry? Run for office. That's when you find out how big a disadvantage you're at if you're an incumbent or a challenger. Those two things. Then if you still have time left over, I would totally repeal Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank is another thing that needs to be repealed and fixed. And did you hear about the agency that was set up under Dodd-Frank? Financial Stability Oversight Commission. Financial Stability Oversight Commission. Here's what I just found out. They were given a mission when it was first set up in 2012. And when they were investigated recently by one of the other governmental agencies, the governmental agency came back and said that they hadn't put together a comprehensive way for that financial stability oversight. And that what they do is they just take suggestions from each other in-house. In other words, they created another bureaucratic agency, hired a bunch of bureaucrats that get paid big dollars of our money, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's not just that federal agency, there are a lot of them that are the same thing. Same exact situation. Now, gentleman back there in the back had a question. Is this my last one, Hunter? Yes, sir. Okay. I can read
Herman,
this.
I still love you like a brother.
Thank you.
Just bullet point right quick what it would take in your mind to replace the tax code.
What it would take to replace the tax code is, number one, you need a champion in the White House. Alternatively, you need several champions in the House and the Senate singing off the same page. Right now, we have a couple of champions in the House, a couple of champions in the Senate, but they're not overly aggressive about it because their staff keeps telling them it's too hard. We can't do it. It won't pass. And you got the lobbyists out there saying, don't waste your time with that, because that's going to eliminate their jobs. So you got to have a champion in the House, champions in the House, champions in the Senate, and the best of those two is to have a champion in the White House. Secondly, a massive educational program of the American public, where you not only suggest to them the need that it needs to be replaced, but you show them how it impacts them.
Just go ahead and get me out to
Too many people
empty or something.
don't understand how it impacts them because they are just accepting this incrementalism like there's nothing they can do about it. They just give up. Once you create a massive grassroots public demand for it, and you've got people, in Washington that are listening, I believe we can get this across the finish line. I did some tax smack last week to the fair tax folk. I said, y'all been trying to pass this for 20 years, and it's not passed yet. Why? Because they have a few people that understand it and support it, but we never had the leadership. With all due respect, I know John Linder. He's great, good man. He did a great job as United States Congressman. He would go there every year and introduce the fair tax. He'd get about 70 to 100 co-sponsors, and it'll stop right there. For 20 years. Because you have too many people in Washington that are part of the political class who tell the representatives it can't be done, and so they don't spend their time on it. Because you see, we are in a new war. This new war isn't about bombs and bullets and bayonets. It's about brains and ballots and boots on the ground. The working class against the political class. Thank y'all very much for your attention.